As Donald Trump's cognitive and physical decline rapidly deteriorates, we will be hearing more about the invocation of the 25th Amendment. That is to remove Donald Trump from office under the Constitution. Now, we know that Donald Trump's sycophants in his cabinet are likely not going to do it themselves, but I think we will be hearing the pressure start to mount from inside the MAGA base as he increasingly isolates them, and from the public in general, that Donald Trump has got to go. I mean, on a cognitive level, we know that Donald Trump, when he was on Air Force One heading to Mar-a-Lago for yet more partying on the taxpayer dime this weekend, he was asked about whether he had an MRI of the brain, and Donald Trump said it was the most perfect MRI results you'd ever seen, that the doctor said it was the greatest MRI ever. And the reporter said, "Where did you get the MRI done to? Was it your brain? What body part?" And Donald Trump said, "I don't know the body part." Who knows the body part? They just did it. Isn't this something that normally happens? No, Donald, people know the body part that the MRIs are performed on. But folks, even when you go back to the Epstein emails that were released, the 23,000 emails, 2,300 separate email threads where Donald Trump's name appears on over 1,600 of the email threads. More than half of the email threads contain Donald Trump's name. Jeffrey Epstein, in his conversations with people in the first Trump administration, people like Bannon, former top reporters, lawyers, former prime ministers, and world leaders, they're very frequently discussing Donald Trump's mental and physical decline, even back then, and the invocation of the 25th Amendment is actually referenced in emails that are sent by Epstein. When you dig into the metadata that is in these emails, you see things like this. Look at the highlighted portion right here from the Epstein text messages and emails, and it says the following. Rod Rosenstein suggested secretly recording Trump and discussed 25th Amendment September 21, 2018. Now, that links to an article from the New York Times on or around that period, which states the following. Rosenstein, who was Donald Trump's deputy attorney general during his first administration, that's the number 2 at the DOJ, discussed invoking the 25th Amendment to oust Trump in the days after Comey was fired in May 2017. Rosenstein also discussed wearing a wire himself, according to the article, to secretly record his conversations with Trump because then Trump's cabinet members thought that he was mentally unfit and cognitively unable to carry out the functions of the presidency even back then. I know people forget about that story, but I think it's highly relevant, especially as we see Donald Trump's far worse cognitive state today. Also, right around that time period where this article discusses Rod Rosenstein potentially wiring up to get the evidence and information to allow the cabinet back then to invoke the 25th Amendment, that's when Donald Trump called in the Russians, Sergei Lavrov, Russia's foreign minister, who still holds that position today, and the then Russian ambassador to the United States, Sergei Kislyak. They went in the Oval Office, and Donald Trump gave them highly classified information. What's notable, as well as we make these connections, is that at or around that time period, based on the Epstein emails that have now been produced from the Epstein estate, Epstein said that he was working with Russian oligarchs to get them information about Donald Trump. He talks about an oligarch by the name of Chutkin, who he gave information to, but that oligarch died. And then Epstein was pitching his services to the former Prime Minister of Norway, Jørgen, to become basically a consultant to Sergei Lavrov leading up to the Helsinki meeting between Donald Trump and Putin. And you see Sergei Lavrov in the Oval Office right there. Just another footnote before moving on to more of this discussion about invoking the 25th Amendment. Back on May 16, 2017, Donald Trump admitted to giving the Russians highly classified information. And he said, as president, I wanted to share with Russia at an openly scheduled White House meeting, which I have the absolute right to do, facts pertaining to terrorism and airline flight safety, humanitarian reasons, plus I want Russia to greatly step up their fight against ISIS and terrorism. So as you go through some of these emails from the Epstein estate, you'll see more emails that reference Donald Trump's kind of impaired cognitive conditions. For example, it talks about Donald Trump. Let me just read it to you so I don't misstate anything. This is Epstein on Donald Trump, that he's talking to a former New York Times reporter about Trump's cognitive state back in 2018. He feels alone and is nuts. I told everyone from day one, evil beyond belief, mad, and most thought I was speaking metaphorically. It's obvious he could crack. Stormy Daniels, lies after lies after lies. He also talks about Prince Andrew and Trump today. Too funny. Recall Prince Andrew's accuser, Virginia Giuffre, came out of Mar-a-Lago, Epstein writes. And then Steve Bannon says, can't believe nobody is making you the connective tissue. So he's going back and forth with Bannon, and then he's separately talking to others how he knows, based on all of his connections inside the White House, that Trump is cracking and breaking down and basically mentally impaired. Donald Trump, even in the past, would get so cognitively addled or worked up, if you will, that he would like walk into doors, apparently like chasing women around. Epstein says, have them ask my houseman about Donald Trump almost walking through the door, leaving his nose print on the glass as young women were swimming in the pool. And he was so focused, he walked straight into the door. Epstein also says on Donald Trump to Michael Wolff, of course he knew about the girls. Epstein says to Thomas Landon back in 2015, a New York Times reporter, would you like the photos of Donald Trump and girls in bikinis in my kitchen? I think all of that is actually in the Epstein files as well. Other just things I want to point out there and then talk more about the 25th Amendment right here, especially now given America's support and bailing out Argentina for $40 billion. Based on Trump's support of Bolsonaro in Brazil and the tariffs Trump has imposed against Brazil. You look at these messages that Epstein was sending back in 2018, 2017, and he knew Trump's playbook. I mean, he was right in the mix of it all. He talks about how Argentina is the next to collapse and how they need a populace that America should prop up. That ended up becoming Javier Milei, who we just bailed out for $40 billion. Epstein is talking about in this time period that Venezuela has more oil reserves than Saudi Arabia and how we need to basically take over the oil there. And we see right now the fact that America seems on the precipice of going to war with Venezuela, claiming that they're shipping fentanyl, although they're not. They do have cocaine trade there. And let's be very clear, Maduro is an illegitimate leader in Venezuela, but what Trump's really looking for is the oil reserves there. And on these Epstein emails and text messages, he's talking about what Trump's going to do back in 2018. They're also talking about Jair Bolsonaro of Brazil, Brazilian paratrooper, my man. And so Epstein's intimately involved in the propping up of these authoritarians and what's going on there. Now, we've seen Democrats talking about the 25th Amendment. We've seen, for example, J.B. Pritzker talking about it last month. Let me remind you what Pritzker said. Play this clip.
Note, the President of the United States is not sending troops into Republican cities or into Republican states. He's talked about it, but that's not what he's doing. He is focused on Democrats, and now he's made an enemies list. He's made a list of people that are his political opponents, and he's calling us domestic enemies. I mean, what kind of a country are we in here? The United States used to be a country where the president followed the Constitution, where the president believed in the rule of law, where the president didn't target people based on their views, but rather had debate with people and maybe won, maybe lost in an election and put their views forward and got them passed. But the idea that you're going to go suggest that you're going to arrest people or that people don't deserve to be U.S. citizens when they are, just because they oppose the president of the United States. I mean, there is something genuinely wrong with this man, and the 25th Amendment ought to be invoked.
You know, when it comes to dog food, it always felt like you had to make a choice. You could either have fresh and healthy or easy to store and serve, but never both. But you don't have to choose anymore thanks to Sundays. Sundays is fresh, air-dried dog food made from clean ingredients, and the recipe is actually customized based on your dog's size, breed, allergies, activity levels, all of it, everything. And unlike other fresh dog foods, Sundays does not require thawing, refrigeration, or preparation because of their air-drying process. You just pour and serve. That's it. I'll tell you, my pup went crazy for this stuff. Within a week, we noticed more energy, way better mood, and even perfect poops, I gotta say. No more itching, no more eye boogers, none of it. It was wild how fast the change happened. And I love the story behind it. Sundays was started by Dr. Tori Waxman, a veterinarian who's devoted her life to animals. The standards are insanely high. If it's not 100% all-natural meat and superfoods with 0% synthetic nutrients or artificial ingredients, then it is not Sundays. Plus, every order ships right to your door and you can cancel or pause anytime. They even have a 14-day money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Thousands of dog parents have made the switch and reported pups with more energy, better poops, softer fur, and fresher breath thanks to Sundays. Make the switch to Sundays. Go right now to sundays4dogs.com/Meidas and get 50% off your first order. Or you can use code Meidas at checkout. That's 50% off your first order at sundays.com/Meidas, sundaysfordogs.com/Meidas, or use code Meidas at checkout. That's MEIDAS.
I'll remind you what Democratic Congressmember Goldman said about the 25th Amendment as well recently. Let's play this clip.
I could debate you on each and every one of those things you just laid out, but I don't think you can call it whatever you want. I think that's an incorrect statement, Congressman. I think words have meaning and they matter. And I think you know that. I think we have to be careful with our words, especially if we're not trying to inflame the public, and most certainly if we're trying to arrive at the truth. And after 4 years of having us gaslighted over the competency, the mental acuity of the previous president, it's absurd to question, even if you disagree, Congressman, and clearly you do with much of the president, the competency of the sitting president today. I think the accuracy and truth of those words do matter.
Well, I don't think he's competent, Will. I don't know what to tell you. Whether his cognitive abilities are sufficient to get past the 25th Amendment, you know, we don't know that right now. But I think what is clear is that he has driven our country into a disastrous economy. He has undermining the fundamental rule of law and democracy. He is taking away benefits in order to cut taxes for the rich. I think even you, Will, would have to agree with me that this first 100 days is not at all what he promised the American people.
No, I'm sorry to notify you. I do not agree with you. I think this first 100 days is exactly what he promised the American people.
And I don't know how anybody can't come to the conclusion that the 25th Amendment needs to be invoked, where Donald Trump talks about having an MRI, but doesn't know what body part that it was on, and says that it was the most perfect thing imaginable. As Mehdi Hassan says, this is 25th Amendment territory. I mean, you don't know the body part of the MRI? Let's just play this clip right here.
Mr. President, could you tell us why you needed to get an MRI? I understand that the results were good, but what was it for?
Because it's part of my physical. Getting an MRI is very standard. Well, you think I shouldn't have it? Other people get it.
Typically, an MRI
I had an
is
MRI.
a specific part of your body.
Here's what the story is. I had an MRI. The doctor said it was the best result he has ever seen as a doctor. That's it. But I had an MRI as part of my standard yearly, or I think they do it every 2 years, but I have the physical every year. And the result was outstanding.
Was it your brain?
Did you know? I have no idea what they analyzed, but whatever they analyzed it well, and they said that I had as good a result as they've ever seen. Now, the other thing I took, as you know, a very advanced test on mental acuity, because I think a president should have to do that. And as you probably heard, I aced it. I got a perfect score. I got the highest score. I got a perfect score. And the only reason I tell you that is it's one subject, unlike Biden and others, that you can take off your plate.
You know, we've showed you the videos of the Prime Minister of Japan recently having to chaperone Donald Trump because he was wandering around. We showed you Donald Trump's meeting with Putin a few months back where Donald Trump couldn't walk in a straight line. I like this aspect of a hearing that took place in the past few months where the Democrats on the Senate played a montage of clips showing Trump's obvious cognitive decline. Here, play this clip.
Don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as president?
I don't know. The windmills are driving the whales crazy, obviously. I have concepts of a plan. They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the... I know about magnets is this. Give me a glass of water. Let me drop it on the magnets. That's the end of the magnet. The kidney has a very special place in the heart. Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? This is a tough hurricane, one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. When you ran out the healthy arms, you ran out of really healthy. They had great arms, but they ran out. It's called sports. It's called baseball in particular. Can't understand a word he's saying. Did you just see Maduro, Venezuela? It's unbelievable. Well, I don't know about it. I mean, obviously, I'm not involved.
He wants to know why the proclamation was signed in the dark.
I don't know when it was signed because I didn't sign it. Other people handled it.
Do any of these statements raise a question of cognitive ability?
And then, of course, there's Donald Trump on the airplane continuing to brag about taking cognitive exams. Let me show you this clip right here.
The yearly physical. I think I did well. I think they're releasing the report on Sunday. Doctors, highly respected doctors. Great place, great, amazing place, actually.
Did they give you any suggestions or advice on anything you need to change up?
A little bit, but overall I think I felt I was in very good shape. Good heart, a good soul, very good soul. And I wanted to be a little different than Biden. I took a cognitive test, and I don't know what to tell you other than I got every answer right.
By the way, this is how Fox is trying to play it off. This is what Jesse Waters had to say. Let me just show you this clip right here.
So the thing he's calling him demented now, he's saying Trump has dementia. You can't say Trump is a diabolical Nazi who's overthrowing the government and then on the next day call him someone with dementia. You can't be a dictator with dementia. You can't suspend an election and then forget you suspended an election. Trump didn't need note cards to know who Hillary Clinton was. And the guy has the longest memory of anybody. He remembers every slight, every name, every statistic. The man is a lot of things. He does not have dementia.
The Potomac River, the beautiful Potomac River, that means lots of water. And the water is right under the building. And they decide to build a basement under the building in the Potomac River. So in order to do that, you need the biggest pumps that God ever created. And they were pumping their hearts out, but as big as those pumps are, you can't pump it fast enough because it's the Potomac River. If the pump were bigger than this room, you couldn't pump it. But they tried, and they've been building a basement. And I said, why did you want to build a basement? I thought it would be a good idea, sir. A basement is the least valuable floor in a building. I know a lot about real estate. The least valuable thing is the basement. And you don't build a basement under a building that is 2 feet above the river that's right next door. You know, it's right near the river. People don't realize the river's right out their window. And that's the beginning. They did just a terrible job. They instead of I could take a ceiling like this, they'd rip out the ceiling because they see a crack. Let's rip out the ceiling. And I would fix the crack and I would paint the ceiling. And under the ceiling, they put the most incredible protective material. They go out by 3/4 inch, brand new, gorgeous 3/4 inch plywood and sheetrock, hardened sheetrock. And they had it all over the building. So if a little piece of flake came down, but the problem is when they took the ceiling down and it would hit, they spent millions of dollars on protective material that you didn't have to spend anything.
You know, and the way they try to describe what Donald Trump's doing from an economic perspective, and I kid you not, you have Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying that what Trump's doing here is called strategic uncertainty. So they're trying to frame Trump's cognitive issues and 25th Amendment-like issues as strategic uncertainty. You see, like they're like he's so crazy that no one knows what to do, and then we take advantage of that. No, it's just he's cognitively addled and he's physically addled also. Here, let's just play this clip.
So that I like that personally. I think it's great and brilliant. But Wall Street, your old friends, hate it. They hate that kind of uncertainty. What do you say to them tonight, given President Trump's comments about, well, we don't have a deal. We don't have a deal. We'll survive.
Well, Laura, it's called, in game theory, it's called strategic uncertainty, what you're talking about. Nobody does it better than President Trump, and it can be unsettling for the markets. But why are they unsettled? Because they have a lack of information. President Trump has asymmetric information for what he's willing to do. We don't disclose it. And again, with President Trump, that the strategic uncertainty will make sure that we get the best deal possible. That's what's happening with the trading partners who are coming to us.
And then there are these messages, and I'll leave you with this. Again, as you dig deeper into these Epstein text messages, Epstein talks about how I understand there is a passage where you're saying maybe he kills himself, and his former friend says, no, he fakes a heart attack. Over the weekend, I think we should see it. Is that good or is that snark? I mean, we need to see the files to get the full context of what this actually, means. But again, we've known that Donald Trump's had multiple physicals recently at Walter Reed, which seem to be more than just physicals. We know these medical reports have been BS that have been produced. They're not even medical reports. They're just like propaganda statements that look like they're straight out of North Korea. And I think we need to have this very serious conversation. But what I think is interesting is that Epstein was talking about the 25th Amendment. Epstein was talking about it in the messages. And all these people behind closed doors, they're saying it to Epstein. And Epstein's saying it to them. High-level peoples, So tell me what you think about that. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million. I found it all very interesting.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.